In the Money is made possible by financial support from Old National Bank and Chicagoans like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to In the Money. I am your host, Kimberly Loftus, a CPA and financial executive who today is financially secure, but was not always. Coming from a hard-working family where my dad worked at the local factory and my mom worked as a nurse, their dream for me was to go to college and get a good-paying job that was not dependent on working overtime. So off I went to college with this plan. I graduated and became an accountant. Over the years, I realized for various reasons I wanted to have my own business, but was scared to leave my good job, but the universe had other plans for me. My then employer was leaving the U.S. market, so I was able to use my severance package to support my family while I got my business off the ground, for which I was ultimately successful because I was able to use the knowledge and tools learned while working for others over so many years. Having the financial means and the financial skill set to pursue entrepreneurship is critical in not only opening a business, but also keeping the doors open for the long term. Be it your side hustle or actual business, it takes money and financial knowledge to be in the game. Today we're going to talk about different business funding options for the stage of business as well as needs beyond funding. Joining us in the living room today is Lou Costabile, family man and owner of multiple businesses that include IT support, networking groups, vintage cars, as well as a few others. Welcome to the show, Lou. Please share with us what drove you to start your own business.
Well, I think what drove me to start my own business was sending out resumes and not getting any response. And I always thought that, I had something to offer. And I thought that companies weren't really taking advantage of it, so I figured you have to depend on yourself.
And so what did you feel you had to bring to the table?
Well, I knew that I could talk, and I knew that it was about bringing something to the table that other people wanted. So whether it was IT support, and I could be a salesperson for that, and find some consultants, or whether it was YouTube, where I thought that I could video some cars and people would be interested in vintage cars, or the CFO mastermind group, or getting the CFOs together and letting them share their issues and solve them together is better than solving them trying to do it individually. So when you see the value of something you can bring to the table that they need back, then you can go after it.
And so we mentioned that you have multiple businesses.
Yep.
What was the common thread for you having all these multiple businesses?
Money. The common thread was from the IT business. That's what I started in, and from there, I went to the CFO mastermind business because I was talking to chief financial officers, usually were my IT client. So I was trying to make call into the businesses, and the receptionist would cut me short, or the CFO would say, "We got IT covered." So when I called them and I said, "Hey, I'd like to invite you to a CFO lunch with other CFOs," there wasn't a button to shut me off there. So they're like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, get together with other CFOs and we solve business problems together." And they said, "Oh, well, let me put you through." And I said, "Well, before you put me through, is it first initial last name at yourwebsite.com?" And they go, "Oh, no, it's full name dot." And I got the email, so I would send them a LinkedIn invitation. And then I'd send them an email, and then I'd call them and say, "Hey, I sent you a LinkedIn invite so you could see about me. I also sent you an email, so you should have had that, and I'd like to talk to you." And when you put three things together like that versus just a blanket email, it has a lot of power to it.
Would you say that you have this passion for these businesses, or was it more about what you could, make money from it?
Well, I have a family, so money is important. But it was, the IT business is challenging because it's a little bit like, business plumbing. You have to have a problem and you have to solve the problem, where YouTube is more about fun and just getting to something people like. So it's much more fun to do something people like and get the kudos from that. I don't get many kudos from IT support, but I get a lot of kudos from Lou, great car and so much fun, and love that. So
I can see how you funded future businesses from your original business, but how did you fund the IT business when you started out?
Just determination. I started that with, I had a house and I rented that to a person, and then I made that amount of money, and I rented a house at this amount of money. So I took that as my earnings, and I also ran a martial art business. So that used to be what I call fun money. Now that was needed money. So I took that money from the rent and money from that and continued to build that until finally, about 2.5 years later, the business was moving on its own, and I was paying all my bills, and my wife was, okay, and the kid was okay, and we went from there.
So when you had your job originally, you had this martial arts studio.
Yep.
And so you were able to fund or get into the martial arts studio because you weren't dependent on that money, but eventually that turned to dependency.
Well, I think the money really came from the rent, from the difference in the rent. I was renting, I think, my house at the time for $1,300, and I was renting a house for $400. So that gap was enough to keep me in the green, and the martial art money was enough to keep cars insured and things like that. So
how did you determine how much money you needed when you started your business?
I just looked at my bills, and figured I need a certain amount of money. And of course, I had a wife and a child, and they need to eat as a general rule. So
you were just trying to survive. You
I was surviving,
make enough just to survive.
Yeah.
It wasn't to make all this profit, it's to survive.
Yeah. Well, I think that as I'm thinking about your question, I think really no matter when you start a business, you have to be determined.
Right.
And once you're determined, you'll figure out a way. And then it takes a couple of years to be successful. And even when you're successful, you're still not the last one, which is confident. Confident comes after, and I'll use my martial art business, all right? When I started, I was like everybody else, you start as a white belt. And then you start to have some success, you start to realize you're not getting punched all the time, and you're starting to realize you can start to beat other people, and you're getting accolades from other people. So you're successful belt-wise, but you're not confident yet. And it wasn't until probably I was a third-degree black belt before I actually felt like now I'm confident in martial arts. So having that knowledge there in martial arts helped me with the business, because I was like, okay, I can do this. I just have to make a lot of calls and send a lot of emails. And at the time they didn't have LinkedIn, but linking to people now, and then you finally get to a point where your finances start to oversee what your expenses are, and you start to feel some success, but you're still not confident.
Right.
Yep.
So what would you say would be the major difference when you first started out? You basically were a startup business, and you had certain financial needs, and then your business was established.
Yeah.
How did your financial needs change once you went from startup to more established?
Well, then you can buy some non-necessary items. Mine was I actually started collecting Michael Jordan sports cards, and I picked the right guy, and he continued to do well, and those became investments. And I actually did quite well with that, which was a surprise. Or like my wife likes to say, does everything you have to do turn into a business? and I don't try to do that, it just kind of does.
Yeah, lay your hands on me and give me some of this money. So my question for you then is, since you always seem to be doing investment, is it fun? Once you got past this survival mode?
When it turns into a 4-letter word, W-O-R-K, then it's no fun.
Okay.
So my IT business is work, and I'll put that on this hand. On this hand, it's martial arts is fun. YouTube is a blast. My YouTube channel, My Car Story with Lou, and then the CFO Mastermind, which you were a part of for a while, is a blast because I'm helping people get together and solve business issues, and we do it once a month, and you're bringing a value to those people.
Okay. So what tip would you give our viewers who are starting up their business from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, the first thing is be consistent. If you're not consistent, you're not going to be successful. And, I use the word determined, but determined has to go also with consistency. If I use my YouTube channel as an example, if I post a video once a month, nobody pay attention, nobody be interested. So I was posting 7 videos a week.
Wow.
Then I moved it down to 3 videos a week. Then I moved it to 2, and I found that at 2, I started to lose some subscribers. So there's a certain balance that you find out over time. And then you start to have consistent growth in whatever avenue you usually choose, as long as you're consistent.
And then what is the tip you would give for the established business from a financial standpoint?
Well, one of the tips I'd give you is I don't think you have to be the best. You know, people say, you know, you got to be the best at that. I think you have to work in your God-given talent. Like, I think just coming out of the womb, I was able to talk. So I knew that I would be able to do sales or presentations, or I was going to be that guy to lead the business. I didn't start as that guy to lead the business. I think my martial art training kind of helped me to be the leader. But I always had the mouth. I always had the
Right.
gift to talk and communicate and smile and make people feel good.
So to sum it up, you found what made you special,
Yeah.
and you turned that into not one business, but multiple businesses that complemented each other so they all could kind of grow together.
Exactly. I just continue to use my gift. I mean, some people have gifts in writing or drawing or art or creativity, and I don't really have that gift. As an example, my editor for my YouTube channel is my son. He likes to be behind the camera. He likes to work on things like that. So he's been working for me and getting paid pretty well from the age of 13
Oh, wow.
to 18. You know,
And my
so-
daughter, let her hear that, because I'm having her
Yeah.
do my social media content so she can get paid really well in the future.
Well, that's the key is, I mean, if you teach people that they can be independent and you teach people that they can do it, then they get that success and then they finally get the confidence.
Well, thank you so much, Lou, for sharing your tips. Much success.
Thank you.
I'm Bianca Cotton, host of Behind the Confident Smile. Tune in this Friday at 7 p.m.
Maybe it stems from childhood, wanting to be, the best student in the classroom. I don't know, but I felt like I had to keep up this facade that I had everything together.
Now joining us in the living room is Andy Zopp, Managing Partner at Cleveland Avenue, an organization that helps entrepreneurs not only with funding, but support services. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thanks, Kim. How are you?
I am great. Now, I wanted to know a little bit about Cleveland Avenue. What do you do there?
So Cleveland Avenue is an investment firm, and we make investments. We have several funds. Our two leading funds. Our organization was started by Don Thompson. Don is the former CEO of McDonald's, and we have two funds that focus on food and beverage. And then the fund that I lead focuses on investing in companies led by Black, Latinx, and women entrepreneurs.
So can that be startups or do they need to be established?
Generally, our fund requires that companies have been operating for at least a year or two, have a minimum of $500,000 in revenue. We're really looking to invest in companies that have gotten that seed money, have gotten some traction, and are now at that next level where they need to grow and they need capital to grow. Our food and beverage funds typically invest in companies that are even later, like Series A and up companies. And we also have a tech fund and a fund that focuses on, or a investment person who focuses on agricultural investments. But we are starting now to look at seed companies and companies that are really just doing some seed funding, companies that are just starting. But mostly we're looking at companies, and particularly my fund is looking at companies that have been operating and are trying to get to that next level for growth. Because we feel like entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs of color and women, really don't get people to get behind them, right? It's a risk business and people don't want to take a risk on them. And you need capital to grow your business.
So can we go through a couple of definitions? So when you say seed money, what do you mean by that?
Well, seed money would be, you have an idea, right? And and it's called a seed, right? You're planting the idea, you're getting money to just start your idea. Sometimes you haven't even, like you have an idea for a product, you haven't built it. So seed money will get you the prototype. Or you have written, you have an idea for an app and you're starting to do it. Seed money will help you get the technical support to build it initially. But it's that initial startup money, seed funding. And then typically, a lot of times that comes from friends and family, which, a lot of Black and brown and minority entrepreneurs don't have. Right. But there are now a lot of funds that do just seed funding and funds that do just seed funding for underrepresented entrepreneurs.
Now, what about round A? What does that mean?
Well, Series A is typically, so what we would call ourselves is early growth. So we're kind of in between seed funding and Series A. Series A is really a first large equity round for most companies. It's typically in the $5-10 million range of total money that a company's trying to raise. And it is that first significant time when you're getting equity investors. And by equity investors, what I'm talking about are people who are actually going to invest and get a portion, a percentage of the business for their investment. Doesn't mean they're going to own the business or run the business, but they will get a significant, some sort of equity in the business.
Now, how does that differ from someone going to a bank and getting a loan?
Well, a loan is a form of debt, and that is a form of capital, right? And so they give you a loan. They don't have any interest in your business. Basically, they give you some money. It's no different than a credit card. If you typically a lot less interest,
Right.
and so they give you some money, and then you pay them back over time with some interest, and they make their money on the interest. One of the things that we do, and some investors do, is something called a convertible note. So it's a loan, it's debt equity. I mean, it's a debt capital, but you get equity. Typically at a discount. So if you give somebody a loan for, let's just say it's $100,000, that interest over time, rather than pay you the interest, it accrues. And so over time it goes into the value. So when it converts into equity, if I gave you $100,000, I may get $120,000 in equity, rather than you paying me interest on the loan.
So if I give someone equity, am I giving up control?
No, you're not giving up control. You're giving up a percentage of your interest in the business. But one thing to know is that as you grow your company, your ownership interest is probably, and you add investors, your ownership interest will decline. So if you look at eventually if you go public, right, your company's owned by the broad range of shareholders, and you may have a significant portion of those shares, but you may not own the bulk of the company. But if your company has grown, the value of your investment will have grown as well. And so, but that's a real challenge for entrepreneurs, particularly who've just started. They're like, what do you mean I'm not going to own my company? I'm like, well, you're going to have if your company grows the way we want it to grow, you're going to have much more value, but you might have much less interest.
Can you dictate to me how I run my business because I gave you some equity?
I can't. In the way we invest, but typically, oftentimes we'll get a board seat, so we have some say and influence, but we can't tell you how to run your company. Sometimes, though, if, that gets to a large portion of equity, you have equity or investors, they will have some influence because they've invested in your business, but you won't lose control of your company typically for like our investment sizes are typically around 6% to 10%, high single digits to low double digits.
Now, what is the importance of having a board seat? I mean, do you help the entrepreneur understand things or get them in rooms that they normally wouldn't get in?
We do both of those things. Okay. Part of the board seat is you're there to help the entrepreneur think through their strategy. You're not running it's typically it's a governance role. You're not running the company, but you're making sure that they're hitting the financial targets that they're going to hit. And if they're not, how you help them think through how they address those issues. You can make introductions. You don't have to have a board seat. Several of the companies in our portfolio, we don't have board seats on, but we do make introductions. We've helped them with supply chain issues. We've helped them think through marketing issues. We've helped them think through strategy. So, we want our companies to grow. And so we're trying to help those entrepreneurs do that.
So do they normally, or all of them have boards already, or is that something that they need to establish?
Many do not have a formal board. Okay. Typically they have, sometimes it's just the entrepreneur and maybe one of their initial investors. As they get larger and they have a bigger business and they have and other investors, we typically ask them to get a formal board, sometimes a board of advisors, depending on how they're structured, or a formal board. It oftentimes includes investors.
So from a loan versus equity standpoint, I understand what Cleveland offers, but you also offer support services, which makes you different than a bank. So can you explain a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, I mean, we have a group called the Portfolio Resource Group, and we talk to our entrepreneurs on a regular basis, and they will sometimes come in and say, like, we have an entrepreneur company that called IO Foods. They were having some challenges with the co-packer. So they have a company that makes a lot of their foods based on their recipes and their directions. And we helped them find a new co-packer for a critical product. We have a person on our team who's a supply chain guru, and she helped them with that. We have helped companies think through changing their business model or changing their product structure or their strategy, their go-to-market strategy. So we can do all of those things, typically at the request of the company. We don't come barging in and say, you know what, now we have made suggestions like, you know, you could use some thought on this point. I have a software company. We're talking to them, helping them get some counsel and support on pricing and how they go to market, because they have a great idea that's probably going to be worth a lot of money, but they haven't figured out fully how they can make it into an enterprise across a lot of different sectors. And so we're probably going to get them some support, help them get some support to do that.
That sounds like a great partnership. Not only are they getting the equity through funding that they need, they're also getting the support services. So what tips would you give that entrepreneur out there who's looking for that equity funding?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is, you know, a lot of times, particularly people who are starting up as entrepreneurs, and they don't necessarily have financial background. And you know, they're the money's coming in, they're paying their bills, but you know, you need to have your financial house in order. So if you don't have an in-house CFO, you need to hire somebody to come in even part-time. You need to have your books in order. You need to be able to track your revenue and your expenses and be able to show people that, because investors are going to want to be able to see that in a fashion that they're used to seeing it in. So you need to have your financial house in order and presentable in a way to do that. The second is you need to be able to tell your story in a very clear and concise way, and have given some thought to, if somebody's going to invest in you, what are you going to do with the money? Like, why do you want the money? So a lot of times people are, thinking through, I'm at this level, but I need a salesperson, or I'm at this level and we're trying to expand our operations. I need someone to manage the operations at this site, or I need some help thinking through my marketing strategy. But you have to have a clear plan for what you're going to do with the money. People aren't going to want to just give you money because you think you need it. So you need to be thoughtful. And we want to invest to help you grow. And so if you haven't thought through how I'm going to grow, then the money's not useful. And if you're not sure how to do those things, there are a lot of entrepreneurial support organizations that help entrepreneurs think through those strategies before they go, to help them get ready to have capital investors investing capital and equity into their businesses.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing those wonderful tips, Andy.
You're welcome. It's been great to talk with you, as always.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Corey Timms. Tune in this Friday at 7:30 p.m. on Channel 19 for part 2 of our inspiring sit-down conversation with Senate Majority Leader Kimberly Lightford.
I felt politics would be what you make it, and that, I'm not dirty. There's no need to be dirty, and she told me to just mind your business and do the work.
We got some amazing advice from Lou and Andy. I hope we'll all put it to good use. Now, before I close us out, here's a brief word from our friends at Old National Bank. Take it away, Ben.
"2022 was very economically challenging for many Americans, and unfortunately 2023 doesn't look to be any better and could even be worse. We've been dealing with high inflation and higher than normal interest rates. This has led to higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, and more. We may have been up at night worrying about how we are going to make ends meet. Can we still save for the kids' college? Will I still have my job later this year? Will we be able to take a vacation this year or next year? Now, as we move into 2023, let's talk about how we handle economic uncertainty. I recommend everyone to have a relationship with a banker at your financial institution. Let them help guide you in a way to establish a plan to help get and keep you on track. First thing, build an emergency fund. When we have one, we're a lot less stressed. When we have less stress, we tend to make more rational financial decisions. Next, establish a budget, but be intentional. Many people have no idea where their money goes. Keep track of your daily spending for 1 week and just see where your money actually goes. For example, a $5 cup of coffee on your morning commute to work, let's just say you do that every day during the work week. You're going to spend around $1,300 a year, or let's fast forward through your working career, $52,000 over a working lifetime. And let me just tell you, that does not include inflation. Working with a budget keeps you focused and you will know where all your money is going. Now let's talk about a volatile market. Markets will continue to go up and down. And as experts predict, this year will most likely be no different. If you're not at retirement age, it may not be as bad as you think if the market drops. Let's think about it for a moment. When the market drops, the price of stocks fall. And most likely, in an example of a retirement plan, you're putting the same amount of money in every single paycheck. So that same amount is going in to buy stocks, and when the market drops, you're effectively buying more stocks. So fast forward, when the market rises, you've made more money. Now, if we are at retirement age, we may need some more of that money sooner rather than later. Working with a financial advisor can help you set up a plan for your risk tolerance. If you haven't done this in a while, or never done it before, work with your local bank to meet with a financial advisor. They can set up a plan that works for you for your short and long-term goals.
Hi, I'm Tawana Streeter, host of DIY DEI. Tune in on Mondays at 7:30 p.m. as I discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace.
There are two ways to fund an entrepreneurial dream: self-funding or external funding. Today we talked about bank loans, self-funding, and venture capital. It's important to understand that these options may come with different terms and conditions, and it's crucial to figure out what is best for your business. You must consider what you're willing to give up for funding and how much additional support you may need. Finding the right informational hub can guide you to the best funding options for your business. It's important to do your research, network, and consult with experts to determine the best path forward for your business. Always keep in mind, how you handle your personal finances will greatly impact the funding options available to your business. Your personal attitude and relationship towards money will directly affect how a funder believes you will treat any business monies provided. My money challenge to you is to make sure you get your personal finances in order, be it further education or organization of your finances, before seeking investments or bank loans. Otherwise, you'll be limited to self-funding. Remember, we are on this financial journey together.